Hello, my name is Sheila Brennan, and I'm a Senior Program Officer in the Office of Digital Humanities. And I'm going to walk you through the ins and outs of the dangers and opportunities of technology, perspectives from the Humanities program, which we are calling DOT. During today's presentation, I will review the program goals and possible activities funded through the DOT program, the deadlines and eligibility requirements, walk through the components of your application, look over the review criteria, and then I'll give you a sense of the review process timeline. And finally, I'll provide you with some contact information and links to assist you in the application process. With this program, our goal is to support research that analyzes technology, broadly defined, and its impact on society through the lens of the humanities or the humanistic social sciences. Some of today's most challenging questions are intertwined with specific technologies and their dramatic impacts, both positive and negative, on our health, the environment, cultural and educational institutions, social interactions, as well as our government and democratic processes, nearly all aspects of our lives. In this program, we invoke technology in quite a broad way, understanding that it may encompass many objects of study. DOT grants may fund projects exploring ancient technologies or the most modern tech, including research into artificial intelligence. For the DOT program, projects may address a wide range of contemporary issues impacted by technology, such as climate change, racial justice, social media, disinformation, and the democratic process, medical technologies, wealth inequality, data privacy, ethics of algorithms and artificial intelligence, things like cryptocurrencies and non fungible tokens, supply chains and infrastructure, even educational technologies and the streaming economy, just to name a few. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list. And we know that many of you listening today already engage in research in these areas, and we are hoping to attract scholars like yourselves from a wide range of disciplines to this grant program. So you may be asking what kinds of activities this program can fund, particularly if you haven't applied to the NEH before. So the program is quite flexible, but you must propose a project and it can be at any stage of its development. So the grant funds could pay for things like a course buyout, a travel to archives, research assistance, such as students, even community partner participation, planning and hosting a field-wide convening, activities related to conducting studies or interviews, other types of data collection and analysis, experiments or prototyping, as well as the preparation of publications and other types of intellectual output. And that includes articles, books, websites, etc. Now, there are a few things that we do not fund. So in this program, we don't fund course development or new majors or minors. And that's because there are other programs in the NEH in the education division that are designed to support this kind of work. Also, we won't fund projects that are primarily funding equipment or, say, outfitting a lab. Now, as with all NEH opportunities, projects cannot seek funding for the following: promotion of a particular political, religious, or ideological point of view, advocacy of a particular program, social or political action, support of specific public policies or legislation, including lobbying, or projects that fall outside of the humanities and humanistic social sciences, such as performance of art, creative writing, autobiography, memoir, creative nonfiction, or policy studies. So now some of you may be asking, well, how does the NEH define the humanities or the humanistic social sciences? So the NEH website does actually contain a long definition of which fields that we can fund. And of course, this list is not exhaustive, but it really is We fund the study, interpretation of language, linguistics, literature, history, even jurisprudence, philosophy, archaeology, comparative religion, ethics, history, criticism, and theory of the arts, as well as anthropology, ethnography, American studies, Africana studies, all area and ethnic studies, gender and queer studies, science, technology, and society, rhetoric and communications, media studies, economic history, etc. Now let's talk about who's eligible to apply and review the deadlines. So this program is designed for US and territorial institutions only. And that includes nonprofits, institutions of higher education, state and local governments, and federally recognized tribal entities. All organizations need to maintain an active registration with sam.gov. And this is important if your organization hasn't applied to the NEH in the past or not recently, because it does provide your organization with a unique identifier, which is required to apply for this and all other NEH opportunities, as well as other federal grants. So an institution may submit multiple applications for separate and distinct projects with different project directors. So that means that an individual may only serve as a project director or co-director for one DOT application per deadline. Graduate students may not be project directors or co-directors, but they may serve in other project roles. And you may not request funds for the same activities in more than one federal grant application, and that is the double dipping restrictions. So the newly released guidelines for the DOT program will be used for applicants applying to the October 11th, 2023 deadline, as well as for the third and last round that will be due September 12th, 2024. Next, how much can you request in funding for this program? So we have two funding categories. One is for projects that are led by a single researcher, and they can apply for up to $75,000. And then we offer projects that are led by collaborative teams where there are two or more project directors. These individuals may be from the same or they can be from different institutions. And in this category, independent scholars may serve as a co-project director. These teams can apply for up to $150,000. And for both categories, the funding period for these projects is up to 2 years. Now, where do you start with this application process? So the DOT program resource page that I have screenshotted and linked to here contains all of the information you will need to apply. You do need to keep scrolling down the page because there is a lot of information on the page, and then you will find links to all of the pertinent information about the program. So if you scroll to the middle of that program resource page, you will find step 1, which is labeled review. And if you expand that menu, you'll find the notice of funding opportunity or the NOFO or the guidelines. And if you click on this link, it opens a PDF containing all of the information about every application requirement. So that's your soup to nuts document. The second link goes to grants.gov, and this is where your institution will submit all of the application pieces and fill out any required forms. Here is a screenshot of where the actual application lives on grants.gov. There are two applications available. One for projects led by single researchers, and that starts with the DOI prefix, and the other is for collaborative teams, DOC. All forms, such as the cover sheet and the budget, are available as fillable forms within grants.gov. You should not be downloading a reference copy and then uploading that as a PDF. You have to fill those forms out within grants.gov. Then there are also slots where your Grants and Research Office Administrator will upload your narrative, work plan, and other attachments required for submission. All right, let's return to the NOFO PDF. If you go to page 8, you will see an application components table, which is a quick checklist of all of the required pieces that must be submitted in order for your application to be complete and eligible. So just be sure to submit anything that is listed as required and check on components that are conditionally required because you may find that you need to submit that as well. Note page limits, such as for the narrative and other components. If you're submitting an application as an individual researcher, your narrative cannot exceed 4 pages. If you're a collaborative team, you get up to 6 pages. But note that no application can exceed the 3-page limit for work plans. I cannot stress enough that you need to check in with your institutional research or development office soon if you're interested in applying for this program or really any federal grant program. Go to them early and inquire about any internal deadlines and requirements, as well as who is responsible for submitting which pieces and by when. Now, as you're preparing your application, let the different components, particularly the narrative sections and prompts, guide your writing and use them to build your argument to convince peer reviewers that this project should be supported with NEH funds. As with most grant applications, you want to write clearly for general audiences. Just think about how you might explain your project, even if it's very technical, to someone like your dean or a board member. So in the narrative, use the first section to explain your argument, articulate your research questions and methods, define the technologies to be explored, as well as to discuss any ethical frameworks guiding the project. Then we want to hear how your project would contribute to and advance existing scholarship. Describe how the project and your methods will complement, challenge, or expand relevant studies in the field. In the activities and research team section, as well as in the work plan, we want to hear more specifically about the work proposed. We want to see a timeline for completing it and who will be assigned to do which tasks over the course of the grant. As you finish the narrative, you need to describe what you or your team plan to produce by the end of the grant period and how you will share the project's results, particularly to your carefully identified audiences, in an accessible way. Importantly, we ask you to explain how you will credit the project team and collaborators for their work once it's available in its final form. All right, let's quickly review the 4 criteria by which panelists will evaluate your proposal. These are found starting on page 28 of the NOFO PDF. You'll notice throughout the NOFO that we map review criteria with specific sections of the proposal. So for review criterion 1, it's the intellectual significance and impact of the project for the humanities. Mainly here, remember that panelists are looking for projects that fit the program's remit to support humanistic research that explores the relationship between technology and society, and the potential for the proposed outcomes to enhance understanding of current social and cultural issues. Reviewers will be looking for how well you've crafted your research questions and your plans for addressing them. They also will be reading to see how you've situated your project within existing literature to demonstrate a need for this research. They will also look to see if the dissemination and outreach plans are appropriate to reach the identified audiences and communities for this project. Criterion 2 is the quality of the conception, organization, and feasibility of the methodology, activities, and work plan. Reviewers want to see realistic work plans, and they'll assess how well the methods proposed fit within the goals of the project. They will look to see if appropriate project personnel are associated with specific tasks in the work plan. And if applicable, they will assess the strength and appropriateness of the project's plan to ethically manage data, as well as assessing the project's approaches to ethically conduct research. I want to remind you that you can include annotated screenshots, schematics, other visuals, sample interview questions, informed consent forms, or or a long bibliography in the appendices attachment. Next, review criterion 3 relates to the qualifications, expertise, and levels of commitment of the project directors and key project staff or contributors. Reviewers are looking at who is on the project team. Do the project directors, and if applicable, the team assembled, have the experience and expertise appropriate for completing the project's activities? Project directors need not have PhDs. They also need not have PhDs in a humanities field or be employed by a humanities department if you're in an educational institution. But they should have expertise in the areas of inquiry where they are seeking funding. I'll just remind you again that independent scholars may serve as co-project directors on collaborative teams. Reviewers will also be looking to see how team members will be credited for their contributions to the project. And they will want to hear about plans for professional development or mentoring activities for any early career contingent staff or students working on the project. And last, for review criterion 4, it relates to the reasonableness of the proposed budget in relation to the proposed activities, staff compensation, the anticipated results, products, and dissemination. So panelists will look to see if the budget aligns with the project's goals and activities. Panelists increasingly want to see that contingent faculty, graduate students, or members of local communities participating in the projects are compensated for their time. If the project includes collaborations with other institutions, as subrecipients, contractors, or consultants, panelists will want to hear how the lead institution will manage any project deliverables beyond the period of performance. For example, if the lead institution is committing resources for hosting data, or perhaps a multi-authored digital publication resulting from the project's activities, and other things completed by a collaborating institution or set of contributing scholars. I want to remind you that you can use the budget justification and budget narrative, which are required, to document and explain any institutional norms or requirements related to salaries, or something like student wages. For example, you may want to explain that the university caps undergraduate research assistant wages at $12 an hour, or perhaps your museum limits honoraria to $250 per person. You may also use this section to describe how you are compensating community collaborators or other participants in your research project. So now I just want to wrap up with a few reminders and tips. First and last, read the NOFO multiple times. Use it as your guide. Follow all directions, include all required attachments, and adhere to page limits. Submit your applications on time because late applications are not accepted. Also, please be sure to send all of your materials to colleagues who are submitting the application on your behalf as early as you can. You don't want to learn that one of your documents is corrupted at 11:55 p.m. on deadline day and it's not possible to submit on time. Also, do not include CVs. The program requires 1-paragraph biographies for all named personnel. And for projects that are led by teams, co-project directors must submit a letter of commitment. Next, I've said it before and I'll say it again, please write clearly and concisely for a general audience. Avoid jargon and overly technical language. We know you are the expert in your research, but you also need to make your work comprehensible by non-experts. It can be helpful to ask someone outside of your field, outside of your institution, to read a draft before submitting a final application. Also, be sure to demonstrate how your work can make an impact and increase our understanding of contemporary issues through your research into technology. Propose to share your results widely. While not required, panelists increasingly like to see open access publications or reading about plans to make this publicly funded research as available as possible. Also, design a feasible project with a reasonable budget. Again, this is our tax dollars. This is public money. So our reviewers, as well as our staff, take our job very seriously in reviewing the reasonableness of these requests. Now, once you've submitted your application, it can take a while. So I just wanted to walk you through why it takes so long to hear back from the NEH. So it generally takes 6 to 7 months for the NEH's review process, which is pretty rigorous and has multiple steps to be completed. So once you have submitted your application, the ODH staff will review all submissions for completeness and eligibility. Then we break applications into different panels, sorted as best we can by method and area of practice. And then we recruit 4 to 5 panelists with an appropriate mix of subject matter, methodological, and project experience to review the applications. Peer reviewers will then have about 6 weeks to read and evaluate proposals. And then everyone gathers for a meeting for a discussion panel. After that, staff makes recommendations once the peer review process is complete. We write up those recommendations, and those are then reviewed by the NEH senior staff. Then we send those recommendations to the National Council on the Humanities, and they meet 3 times a year. So that means applications submitted for the 2023 October deadline and the 2024 September deadline will go before the March Council. Following the council meeting, NEH Chair Shelley Lowe will make all final decisions about awards. And then at last, you, the applicants, are notified in April of 2024 and April of 2025. So I hope that gives you a better sense of why it takes so long to hear about your submitted application. We take the review process quite seriously, and so that's why it goes through many steps of review before all final decisions are made. We also know it's really hard to wait that long. So I just want to remind you as I'm wrapping up here that we are here to help. That is what our job as a program officers is to help you through this process. If you have any follow-up questions following this presentation, please send them in an email to odh@neh.gov. We do answer our email, I promise. So I suggest if you have a question about the program's fit, send just a short project summary describing the main research questions, proposed activities, and outcomes. We aren't able to read drafts for this program, but we can answer questions. I also think if you're interested in this program, but don't think you'll be applying this round, please consider volunteering to serve as a peer reviewer. And you can also email us directly at odh@neh.gov. We always need more reviewers, and you really get an insider's view into the program, the review process, and you learn about some really exciting research. We offer a number of resources for all of our applicants, and so there's a link here, which also will be available in the PDF of these slides for you to go to review some tips for submitting applications to our office. And finally, if you or your institution is having any trouble submitting the application through grants.gov, please contact them directly. We at the NEH are one of many federal agencies that use a system for accepting grant applications, and we can't help you with a specific problem with their system. This is why it's really important that you begin the submission process as early as possible. You don't want to find that your internet is flickering on and off at 11:55 p.m. Eastern on deadline day, or that you missed an important application component. If you are having any technical issues with grants.gov, please document them and obviously get in touch with grants.gov with their support line. They do have a 24-hour support line as well as a forum and email addresses. But if it's getting close, document as much as possible. So thank you again for taking time to watch this presentation about the DOC program, and I look forward to reading your applications soon.